Hello everybody, my name is Ryan, and in this lesson I'm going to show you how to get Git to ignore certain files. So if we do a git status, currently it's clean. Now let's say for argument's sake I go into my project and I want to put some pictures in there. So let me just grab these pictures and dump them in there. So now if I do a git status, it tells me that these files are currently untracked. But let's say I need these files here, but I don't want Git to track them. I don't want to have any version control on them. So I need to create a file, special file in my project called .gitignore. It doesn't have a file extension. Windows doesn't really like files that don't have file extensions. So we have to create it using Linux. And the quick way to do that is just to do a touch. And then we say .gitignore. So that will create a blank file in our project. So let's go have a look. In our project, I now have this file which is called gitignore. So let's edit that with Notepad. And in this file I can put a list of directories and files that I want Git to ignore. So let's say for example I say airplane.jpg, and then I also put in alonetree.jpg. So let's save that. And if I now go and do a git status, you can see that it has picked up gitignore as an untracked file. So that is one file that I do want it to track, so I'm going to add that in. Gitignore. And then we just commit that quickly. Okay, so now I've got 4 files that are showing as untracked because I haven't added them to the staging area, haven't committed them to the repository. But these 2 files that I've got in my gitignore are being marked as, are not being listed here. So Git is in a sense ignoring these files completely. I could do one even more drastic. I could say, well, ignore all images and don't put any images into my repository. So now if I do a git status, it's picking up that the gitignore file has changed, but it's not picking up any of those JPEGs anymore. Let me show you another directory. Let's say I've got a directory of PDF documents and I paste that in. So now if I do a git status, it's picking up that entire directory as being untracked. So what I can do is go back to my gitignore and edit that. And now also add a directory. I can say PDFs. If you put a slash on the end, it means it's a directory. So I'm saying ignore, have Git ignore that entire directory. So now if I do a git status, once again it's only the gitignore that's been picked up as modified. It's not seeing the JPEGs, it's not seeing the PDFs subfolder. So yeah, any files or directories that you want Git not to keep track of, just create a .gitignore file and then list those files or directories inside of that gitignore file. The next thing is if you create a directory that's empty. So let's go into our project and I'm just going to create a new just find a spot here. I can just create a new folder. I'm just going to call it test. So if I do a git status, you'll see that it hasn't picked up that directory because Git by default only tracks files and not directories. So only if I place a file in that directory will it pick it up. So for example, let's just copy this. I'm just going to copy that picture and dump it into the test folder. So now my test folder is no longer empty. So now it will pick it up. Did it pick it up? Let's see. Git status. It didn't pick it up because in my git ignore I told it to ignore all JPEGs. So that was not a good file to use for the demonstration. Let me just pick a PDF instead. And I'll put that into the test folder. And now you'll see that it is actually picking up that directory. But what happens if you wanted to have a blank directory and maybe only put stuff into it later and you want Git to keep track of it for future? See, now it's not showing up. What you can do is inside of your test directory is you can create a blank file called .gitkeep. Just a blank file. So you'll see now in that I've created this .gitkeep file. And now if we do a git status, actually let me just go out of this directory back to where I was. You can see that it is actually picking up that test directory, even though there's no files inside of it. So that means at a later stage when people add files to that folder, then Git will know about it. So that brings us to the end of learning how to get Git to ignore files and directories, as well as how to get Git to keep track of an empty directory.